Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Two Average Brown Bros podcast. I'm your host, Bershank,
And I'm your host, Andres.
and today is November 15th, 2021. Andres, what's happening, man?
It is November 15th, so that means that over here in Quebec, there's less restrictions. So I'm very excited about it. Other than that, it's just the last week was just one of those weeks that it was just like a very lazy week. So trying to gain energy and motivation to keep on moving through the last bit of my semester. Um, but yeah, pretty chill week. Nothing too out there or nothing very special happened. How about you, man? How's life down in Ottawa?
It was pretty nice this past couple weeks. Like I mentioned last episode, my parents came here. It was very busy though. They were working the whole time, and with the 2 hour time difference, we really didn't get to do too much outside of the housework. But good thing, finally got some furniture for the house, and then just got to hang out with them, and then celebrated a couple big Nepali festivals, which we will get to later. But yeah, I think it was a good couple of weeks. And last week it was kind of sad when they left on Friday, because the house got super quiet and lonely. But that's just how life is right now because we're all in two different cities. But I'm sure they'll be back, and I'll go visit them sometime soon as well.
That sounds like a lovely time.
Absolutely. So Andres, what did you learn this past week?
What did I learn this past week? That's a very good question, Rashank. So I'll pass it back to you while I remember what I learned this week.
Yeah, so for me, it's something nothing too crazy, but so I'm not too much into pop culture. I know my basic pop culture like trivia, I guess. But one of the things I actually learned was Taylor Swift and Jake Gyllenhaal had a relationship back in the day when she was, I think, like 19 and he was like 28, 29, and then they only were together for like 3 months, and then they separated. But then Taylor Swift had made a song about during that time what happened, and it's relevant now because I think Taylor Swift's trying to like make her own I believe her own like record because like something happened um with her former record label, which they're trying to take over all of her songs and music and albums. So now she's trying to re-record all of her past albums, and so she re-recorded this song called "All Too Well." I had never heard it before, but then I was shown it, and then I'm like, huh, that's pretty neat because into a rabbit hole of the just how music ownerships and like record labels and things like that are to the artist, I guess, in a sense. But the other side also that I learned Taylor Swift and Jake Gyllenhaal had a thing, which is crazy because like I love Jake Gyllenhaal movies, so like I wouldn't say I'm like a huge fan of him, but I know his movies and stuff. But that's something that I never knew before.
Oh, that is yeah. That would explain why everyone was just like reposting Taylor and Red and all of that. Like Red is one of her or like very first albums, and I was like, why? And now I understand why people were all crazy about it. I've never been a Swiftie, so like I cannot relate to it. But yeah, no, that's interesting.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting. Yeah, like, and it's pretty crazy because that song I think mentions how she left like her scarf at Jake's house, so Maggie Gyllenhaal's house. And so if you go on Maggie Gyllenhaal's Instagram, literally all of Taylor's, fans or stands, whatever you want to call them, are like commenting on his sister's Instagram, which is kind of like, I don't know, like that's kind of weird to do. Stands, they go pretty crazy, whether it's Taylor fans, Justin Bieber fans, or even like sports fans. But it's interesting to see how pop culture is so, plays such a big part in our society.
Oh, it does. It shapes a lot of things. So
Absolutely.
So yeah, I had to go through my like usually my learning I do it through YouTube, so I had to go back into it and Something interesting that I watched and then I learned was about college endowments in the States and like how they operate. And it is just mind boggling. I remember what, like when I was watching it, I'm just like, there's so much money. But then still, tuition and college is expensive in the States. So that's what I learned.
Yeah, that's always fun time. I know one of my friends, she well, we grew up together in New Zealand, but then like we never really talked. But recently, when my parents came to Ottawa, her parents actually live in Ottawa, so we went to visit her, and she was saying that she started doing med school in US, and it is crazy expensive how much it costs. I guess you also, on the flip side, as a doctor in the US, you also get paid more, but the cost of going to school is pretty expensive, and like a lot of people can't afford it. So you have to wonder how many people actually miss out on becoming a doctor or a lawyer or anything like that in the US, right?
Oh yeah, when you said she went to the school, like she's going for med school in the States, I was just shook at that because I'm just like I know the opposite. A lot of Americans coming to Canada
Hmm.
to do schooling because you know either you're a doctor in the States or in Canada, it's the same. I'm pretty sure it's the same board that certifies that you need to be certified by in order to work in either country. So or like they're very similar. You can like basically go back and forth between both of them. So then they come here to study because it's cheaper, and then they go to the States to make the big money. So
Yep, absolutely.
interesting.
And that's something we can talk about in future episodes, how the Canadian economy kind of like gets hurt because US has lots of private healthcares, private doctors, so you get paid more there. So a lot of people get their education in Canada, but then they move down to the States because they make more money, right?
Oh yeah, there's many fields that is the case. So yeah, we there's a, that's a for a different day.
Exactly.
All right,
So
Roshank.
yeah.
So what are we talking about this week?
So yeah, I think I mentioned it a little bit last week, but the last um, couple weeks, a couple weeks ago, back a while ago in the later half of October, were two of the biggest festivals in Nepal, Dasai and Tihar. So I wanted to talk about those, as well as Diwali, because Diwali is also like somewhat celebrated. It goes in hand with TR. It's slightly different, but Diwali is, something that's everyone knows. But as far as, what I've been raised with, and I'm a Nepali, so, I want to focus on Dasai and TR for the most part.
Okay, so let's just go to the basics. So what are these festivals, Roshank?
Absolutely. So, let's go back to the basics. So, the Nepali calendar or the Hindu calendar, it's based on the lunar cycle. So, most of the times there's not a solid date to when these festivals occur. They change around. There is a solid date in the lunar calendar, but when you come to, to the Western world where they use a Gregorian calendar, the days kind of float around. So 2020th Dasai started in October 26th, but this year started a little bit earlier, so it's on October 15th. And Dasai is a festival that's celebrated by the whole country in Nepal, no matter the different ethnic groups in Nepal. It's definitely one of the biggest festivals, and it really celebrates like the it's a Hindu mythology, marking the victory of Rama, which is one of the mythical demigods, one of the many reincarnations of Lord Vishnu over Ravana, which is a cruel king, and also the victory of Durga, so the one of the biggest Hindu goddesses over the demon. As we like to call it, it's a Vijaya Dasami, so it lasts for approximately 10 days, and I think it definitely is one of the biggest festivals. And no matter who you talk to in Nepali, they're gonna say it's one of the most fun times. And then a little bit later comes Tihar, which is um, it's a festival of lights. It goes so it's very similar to Diwali. Um, However, it's slightly different. There's slightly different celebrations. Tihar lasts for 5 days. This year it was in November 3rd and ended. It's still going on because it's I guess there's so many different celebrations that happens. And the whole thing is just a lot of fun because you back in Nepal you get time off for Dasai and Tihar. You have all the family come together. You go to different places, so it's just a lot of fun.
All right. So let's so you like broadly describe what happens on the first festival you were talking about.
Yep, absolutely. So the Dasai, or Vijaya Dasami, it really is. It's a 10-day celebration where every days are really very unique because each day you devote it to different things. I don't know the full extent of each day, but the main days signify the first day, which is Gatastapana, which is where the eldest member of the family starts to grow zamara. So like saplings of wheat and oat in the sand because you have to grow that out throughout the festival, and which we'll get to later because then you cut it in the 10th day to give it as offerings. And then the seventh day is called the fulpati, which really refers to like the flowers and leaves, and it's just gathering the ingredients. It's a long tradition of bringing different aspects of dosai together. I know, for the pure Nepalis, I'm not even going into full detail, but like I said, this is from what I've learned over the years. I'm not super religious, so I don't know the exact details. I don't know the significance, and hopefully, we can have someone later on the episode or later in the podcast to go and delve into the detail. But this is just a broad overlook from growing up as a Hindu and as a Nepali. And then the eighth day is known as Mahastami, which there's animal sacrifices for the goddess Durga, so which is supposed to make the goddess super happy and welcome. And then the 10th day is the most auspicious day. It's known as Vijaya Dasami, so the biggest day for the whole 10 days. During this day, we all go. Everyone in the family goes to the oldest person's house, and we offer different things. One of the biggest things you've probably seen, on photos on in my Instagram, other people's Instagram, is the big red dots on our forehead. So, which usually, that's a combination of crimson powder, red powder with rice and yogurt for the most part. And the oldest people in the family usually give it to the younger ones, along with the jamara that they had been growing for the last 10 days, like had mentioned. And it's usually you go get the blessings from older people, the priest. Usually we growing up in Nepal, we went to like our grandmas and grandpas, as well as older aunts and uncles. And then of course you get money with it, you get different lots of good food. And it's a little bit different in the Canada, US, because here you don't have all 10-day celebrations. You try to do as much as you can because obviously we don't get time off here. But overall, it's a really fun time because that's one of the biggest, I guess, family reunions that happen in Nepal. Because like sometimes it's so hard to see family all the time, but definitely Dase is one where you see most of the families, and that's kind of one of the also sad things because when you live in Nepal, a lot of people move out of Nepal. Your family members, your relatives, they move in and out of Nepal trying to find better opportunities. So I don't think I've ever had like a full on like celebration with everyone included because growing up, a couple of aunts and uncle lived outside Nepal. Then later on, we moved outside Nepal, so it's kind of hard.
Oh, yeah, it's pretty difficult. I completely understand that part, especially when like holidays like that in like even though they're like a societal and like cultural holiday, you celebrate it with your family, and it does change a little bit the way you go about celebrating the holiday.
Absolutely. And you always have to adapt to where you live. So even here, like I said, you don't go full out and just, celebrate every day, but you try to do the one of the big ones. So definitely the last day, I've always done that with my parents. When I've been like living with them, when I was in school, it's kind of hard to do. But even, you know, students or kids that go abroad, they still find the Nepali community or elders in the, you know, Nepali like population wherever you live, and just try to go there for blessings and the tika and, you know, or the prasad, which is like the offerings that you get. So
That is just so, so nice. So you mentioned a lot of kind of like what is happening, and you also mentioned food, which when it comes, let's be real, when it comes to big festivals across the world, food is such a big component. That does play a big role in celebrating festivals. So, what are some of those traditional foods that you observe during Dasai or Tihar?
absolutely. So with it's a little different for both, but for the most part, you know, I feel like Nepali food is usually the same thing. You know, you always have rice and lentils, or as we call it, dal. Um, and but the some of the unique things about these festivals is the offerings that we give to the, you know, gods and goddesses. Um, so in Dase and Tihar, you know, when we do prayers to the god and goddesses, there's different times where you have to make different like almost like dessert type foods where it's more like sweet stuff, you know, and especially for Tihar, where one of the days I believe, maybe it's for Dase, so don't quote me completely on this, but I'm pretty sure it's Tihar where you have to make like I think 16 varieties of this like dessert types. So I wish personally I would have known, like, you know, what to do, because then I would be doing it myself. But my mom usually is the one that makes it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Like the way best way to explain it, I guess, is more like just sweet dessert type of food. It's not like more like curry or like rice or anything like that. But I guess some of the names are silroti, which is one of the biggest things that in Tihar that you can get, which is pretty much like, you know, rice flour with water and sugar. You mix it up like a pancake batter almost, and then you make big large circles with it in hot oil. You deep fry it pretty much. So that's one of the most like classic foods that you can get, that you can eat. It's it's, you can get it very sweet too. Of course, you know, some people don't prefer to have sugar, so you can put less sugars in it. But honestly, I think it is hard to make because I've made it in the past before. And so the technique is you have like, you know, hot boiling oil, and you have to make a perfect circle around it. But the ones I've made it have become like wavy circles, so it kind of becomes um, all over the place. But it's definitely fun to make. And then some of the other, you know, desserts are like lakamaris, or raspberries, or lalmons. Like lalmons are also, I'm sure you know many people know it as Gulab Jamun. I'm sure you've heard of that before. It's those round balls of, you know, dough, pretty much bathed in sugar. And then there's also other foods such as fini, which is just a simple, not simple. It is hard to make, but it's like the taste is very simple because it's just a flaky texture made out of dough. And then there's anarasa. You know, there's lots of food, lots of dessert type food that I wish I knew how to make, but sadly I don't.
Well, I think, now that you are living in Ottawa by yourself, I think it's time to start practicing some of those skills we're saying. You have an entire year to practice for next year's festivals. Just saying, there's a possibility to always learn your way around the kitchen.
No, absolutely. You know, once I get settled in fully here, I definitely want. That's definitely one of the things that I want to learn is to make more Nepali foods, because I know the basics, you know, but like there's still some things like, you know, for festivals or things like that that I definitely miss. And even, you know, my mom being here for the last 2 weeks, she made like really good food, and I miss that. So I definitely need to learn how to make that.
Oh, I bet. Yeah, no, definitely. And well, also, I will say is even though you learn and you like can put your own touch on food, there's never gonna be anything like mom's food. Never.
Exactly. Yep. Absolutely.
All right. So with Tihar, what are some of the things that you do during that? How long is it? Um, What like what's some of the main things when you celebrate Tihar?
Absolutely. So, for most of the world, like that Indian subcontinent, Diwali is like the biggest, one of the biggest festivals, right? But in Nepal, it's more better known as Tihar because we have our own little like celebrations that come with it. It is slightly different than Diwali because Diwali is like, festival of lights. Tihar is too, but we celebrate a little bit longer. Maybe not longer, it's slightly different, I think. Maybe Diwali, some people, some groups, have the same length, but it's a little different. However, in Nepal, it really involves a celebration of worshiping different like deities for peace and prosperity. So on day one, it's called Kag Tihar. So we're worshiping crows. Crows, it's one of the holy animals in Nepal. In Tihar, it's um, the messenger of Yama, and so we offer sweets and flowers to crows that are outside, And then day two consists of similar thing except for dogs. So I'm sure you've seen photos of this, especially these days, because it's all over, Instagram, Reddit, but it's worshiping dogs, and super cute. And a lot of people these days do it purely just to post it on Instagram, which is fine. It's a tradition that people have been doing, but definitely, it's a really cool day to celebrate dogs. They're worshipped for their love, protection, loyalty, and similar to the crow worshiping, we give them safe to eat food. We give them flowers and the garland made of flowers, as well as the tika on their face. Day three now consists of the cow. As most people know, Hindus, one of their most sacred animals is a cow. So day three is the celebration of cows by doing similar, rituals as the crows and the dogs. And then that's that evening is when Diwali or Tihar is celebrated. So you usually put the colorful. I'm sure you've seen those colorful like intricate designs outside your house, and then on the inside you decorate it. Then the one of the cool things is you get red paint on the bottom of your hands, and then you make like footsteps, which signifies like welcoming goddess Lakshmi into our house, and then we light oil lamps and lantern all around the houses. We put lights up, and then we also celebrate by like doing fireworks and things like that. And one of the coolest things is, so in Christmas, or like Christians celebrate Christmas by going carol singing, right? Caroling,
Mm-hmm.
going door to door. Similar to that, Tihar, it's called Deusi Bailo, so which is pretty much, smaller children and people. It doesn't have to be children because even everyone does it. You go house to house singing Nepali songs, asking for money, pretty much, or like blessings from the older people. It's a lot of fun. Like I've done it a couple times, but not like to the full extent.
Yeah.
But it's pretty much just think of it as caroling, but you're literally going inside the house, performing for other people, singing for people, and you get in return you get money, fruits or sweets, or it's just a super fun time. And then day four is a Goru Tihar, so going with as you can probably tell, it's worshiping a lot of different deities. Now four is the ox. I don't know too much about this. Um, I believe it's just like I said, it goes back to Hindu mythology again. So I'll leave that to until I do further research, because like I said, I am religious, but I don't know full extent. But it is another big celebration. Now Nepal is unique because I mean, most countries are unique, but Nepal, with the different ethnicities within the Nepali community, everyone celebrates a little differently. So, the Newari community, which is one of the biggest communities in Nepal, besides Brahmins or whatever else,
Mm-hmm.
they have their own celebration on the day four, which is called Ma Puja, which is celebrating yourself. You're trying to purify your own soul. And then I don't want to get into too much into this because I'm not Newari, so I don't know the ins and outs of this. Um, and like I don't want to step on anyone's toes because it is pretty. It is a religious thing, but it's definitely one of the biggest celebrations for Newaris. And I've seen people celebrate it, and it's pretty cool. And one of the biggest foods, so going back to the um, food conversation is so one of the biggest foods that you eat during this celebration for Newaris, I believe, is a Yamari, which is a super. It's a delicacy in the Newari community. It's pretty much a steamed dumpling. No, it's not like momos, but it's a sweet version of momos, I guess. So you have, rice flour on the outside, and then in the inside, it's a sweet filling. They call it chaku, which is pretty much, I believe, like sugar cane and ghee and nuts all like cooked in a pot until it melts, and then you fill the dough with it, and then you boil it, or like steam it. Sorry, not boil it. You steam it in a steamer, and it's really good. I've had it a couple times. Like I said, growing up, I didn't do it because we're not Nevaris, but definitely one of the biggest things around that community. And then the last day, so day five, this is also something that I had never celebrated until this year, actually. It's called Bhaitika. So, Bhai in Nepali means brother. However, it's just a celebration of the love of brothers and sisters. So, usually, sisters, they give tika and offerings, and then the flower garlands to their brothers, different ceremonies. It happens during the day. There's different rituals that you have to do in a sense, and there's different mantras or chants that you have to chant throughout, and it's a really fun time. But like I said, I had never done this before this year. So when I moved to Ottawa, I don't have any direct sisters, but my cousin sister, she lives in Ottawa, so we got me, my brother, my cousin, and my cousin brother. We all got to celebrate together by doing the tika and the puja, and just giving each other offerings. And the good thing about the sisters is they get to do all the work, but they also get paid. They get a offering of we usually the guys have to give money or gifts to the sister that gives us the puja or the offerings.
Okay, that sounds pretty interesting and very comprehensive festival, and that's so lovely. And but like, how did it feel like to be able to celebrate that last day when like it was not something you were aware about, but like you couldn't because circumstance, you don't have a sister. So how did that go experiencing it for the first time?
It was pretty cool. Usually, so like, my brother actually had done it before, so I was the only one missing, right? So, my brother, when he went to Hawaii a couple years ago, my cousins from Australia came up there, and so my brother got to celebrate with one of my cousin sisters from Australia. But for me, it was completely new. Like I've done different celebrations, different pujas within Nepali festivals, but this was a pretty unique one because the it's slightly different because in Dasai, like I said, you give the red tika on your forehead, right?
Hmm.
However, with Bhaitika, it's a little different because you get like a so I'm gonna try to explain this the best I can. On your forehead, you get like, of course. So all the colors that we use is like you can buy it at an Indian store. It's just rangoli or I guess yeah, that's the best way to explain it. You get a small, thin U shape on your forehead, from the top of your forehead, and then curves by your eyebrows, and then goes up again. And then within that U, you put different colors of tikas. So it's not just red like Dasai, but you get all the color of the rainbow: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. Or if you want to mix up the colors and do it. But it's just a more colorful than just a normal red tika that we usually get. So it's pretty interesting to get that. And then I think just a gift giving. I think on in Dase, usually when you give money to each other, you get it from other people. You get gifts and stuff. But this one, I think it's a little bit more celebration of the sisters, where you give them more than you receive, I guess. But even then, like it's the thoughts that count because they still have to give you, gifts here and there. They still have to give you like fruits and desserts and sweets and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So overall, it was really cool. And like I said, never done it before and got to do it this year, and it was a pretty cool thing.
Oh, that sounds amazing. And I'm happy for you that you were able to experience some part like that part of like the festival that you usually don't get to. On that topic, do you want to co-own Sherlock so that he can have a garland of flowers around himself next
You know
year?
what? Next year, bring him there. And that's the thing. You don't even have to like have a dog to do it, because some of the times in Nepal, there's so many stray dogs. That's a topic for another episode. But there's so many stray dogs, and if someone doesn't have a dog up by themselves, they go to their family who does, or even they find like a stray dog in the streets, and they offer, the blessings and garlands to them. So honestly, if you want to bring Sherlock next year, would be happy to do it.
Hey, Sherlock's always down for attention. So no, and I was actually reading about it, and I was like, oh my god, this is a festival that the doggos look so happy, and they get they get their like what you mentioned like on their forehead and everything, and I'm just like, oh my god, yes, I've seen this everywhere. Uh, but I bet yeah, maybe I'll think like I'll try to plan it around so that Sherlock can come and bring some joy to people down in Ottawa.
Absolutely.
As I was speaking, Sherlock looked at me and he's like, "What are you signing me up for?"
He's ready for it.
Oh yeah, he's just right now trying to pretend like, "Oh, I don't know about it," but he'll be down. He'll be down for it. So so festivals across the world, they're very different, and like you've done marvelous explaining a little bit like what happens to every day, what do you observe, the significance of each one of these. So what would you say? Every single festival is very unique and very special in its own way. What would you say are some of those uniqueness about Dase, and what are some of the what makes these two festivals very special and unique?
Absolutely. So I think one of the biggest thing is just the length of it. I'm sure you noticed, like both Dasai and Tihar, they go into multiple days, even weeks sometimes. You don't really see that in Western holidays too much. Like Christmas is usually one day. Um, Maybe Easter and that time is a little bit more than one day, but most of the holidays are one day. The only other big holiday that I can think of is not holiday, but like a celebration is Ramadan for Muslims, I guess, where they fast for the whole month and then have a big party at the end. But with Dasa and TR, like I said, it goes on for days. And the other really cool thing is just the different ways people celebrate it. Um, like I said, the different ethnic groups within Nepal itself, they celebrate it in so many ways, and they have their own like ways of doing different things. Of course, there's always a big overarching theme, right? So like we all are Nepalis at the end, and we all celebrate it, you know, the main ways, I guess. But in the smaller picture, like people celebrate so many ways. Like even take my parents' families, like my mom, like when I was doing Bhaitika this past week, my mom was telling me like her family did it slightly different than the way we were doing it here, and it's pretty cool to see how there is an overarching theme, but in the end, like everyone has slightly different takes on it, and everyone has different ways to do blessings and pujas and just make the different kinds of like offerings.
Oh, that's I guess yeah. I think there's room for people to like, as with any other holiday, people like wouldn't say change the essence of it, but just like the way that it's being run by the family changes, and then it becomes like family tradition on top of a national or cultural tradition. Um, in that way.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, and the other thing is like I mentioned how Hinduism and Nepali and India, they go based off the lunar calendar. So with Tihar, it's celebrated on a new moon night of the eighth month in the Hindu calendar. So I honestly, I personally don't know all the months in the Hindu calendar, but usually, like I said, in the Western calendar, that usually translates to around October, November time. So usually in the fall, early winter, late fall stages.
Oh yeah, that's the thing with lunar calendars. You never know when they're gonna happen because we, with the Gregorian calendar, we base it on the sun, which is less precise than the lunar calendar. But yeah, so like I guess like it's like shifts throughout the year. Maybe at some point it will shift more towards the beginning of October, starting to get into like late summer months because that's how the lunar calendar works.
Yep, absolutely.
So, what are some of your favorite things about like? I already know you're gonna say food, so I will allow you as long as you elaborate on it. What are some of like your favorite things to do throughout these times?
One of the biggest things that I miss is like I haven't lived in Nepal, or I haven't gone back to Nepal during the festival time. But I think one of the best things is just the family, like I mentioned earlier. Like literally, Dashain and Tihar is like, especially Dasai, is one of the biggest festivals where literally everyone in the family gets together. That doesn't happen too often. Um, so definitely, I would have to say the family aspect of it, especially because when you live far away from most of your cousins and aunts and uncles, it's kind of hard to celebrate to the full extent.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing, of course, you already said it, the food, like especially the amount of food that people make, like it's crazy. It's not just to like eat ourselves, but for like just as an offering, like I said earlier, I want to say it's like 16 different types of like sweets during Tihar, but literally, and like my mom will literally some years she's made all the kinds of sweets, and like it's for offerings, but of course we get to eat it after, after you offer it to the gods. So definitely a good time, but that's also when you gain the most weight because it's pretty much like deep fried food, sugary foods, and a lot of meat. So one thing I haven't touched upon actually is, so one of the biggest foods like for non-vegetarian people is kosikomasu, which is translates to goat meat. So as Hindus we don't really eat beef, but goat is something that a lot of people eat during, especially Dasai time. We do goat sacrifices. Side note, I have seen a goat being slaughtered before at a temple, and it was traumatizing. Just as a side note, because I went to this one like really famous temple in Nepal, and the guy was trying to. This is gonna be NSFW, so if you don't want to hear like the details, skip the next like 10-20 seconds. But
Yeah,
so the
just skip through it.
yep, so the guy tried to cut the goat's neck, but then the knife was super like blunt. So he just instead of like hacked at the goat's neck, and I felt so bad for the goat. Like usually, like I'm a meat eater, so like I don't really, care. But at that moment, I'm like, shit, I felt so bad. But thankfully, they found like a sharper knife and then did the deed. But definitely, when you're a kid and you see that, it's like whoa. But like as a kid, if you're growing up in Nepal, you see that pretty much every year, so you get like desensitized to it. But for me, seeing that for that first time ever, it was like, what the heck, you know? But definitely, goat meat is one of the most like cooked food during dosai. And there's so many ways to make it. You can make it into a curry. You can like have it fried. You can have it like, especially these days living in Canada, I love to like roast it or barbecue it. It's a little bit harder to barbecue because it is a tougher, and goat meat, for people that haven't had it, it does, if you don't cook it properly, it does smell pretty, like not bad, it just smells bad. So that's why you got to cook it thoroughly and properly. But with goat meat also, coming to US, Canada, a lot of families, they don't want to take a whole goat by themselves, so what they do is they go to like a farm, and a farmer, like usually kills the goat and then divides it amongst the families, and we all take like a portion of it and we make it. And even with the goat, people also, myself included, we've also had the insides of the goat. So, like lungs, stomach, intestines. Some people even have brains. I think I've tried brain a couple once. Not my preferred part of the body, but the other parts I don't mind, especially because the way we make it is you like just pretty much fry it, and they call it buton, and it's really good, with like spices and salt and stuff. but definitely goat is one of the most like eaten foods, and I do love it. Usually I'm not a goat person, but during that time, if you're not a vegetarian, you definitely need to have goat.
Okay, that's very interesting and very good thing to know. But yeah, I bet like sometimes yeah, family sounds like honestly during those big festivals and holidays is like one of the. It's so good to be able to do that with family. It reminds me a little bit of the holiday season.
Absolutely. So like to put it into simple terms, our like Hindus, Nepalis, our Christmas and New Year's and the biggest festivals for you guys. This is literally that for us, right? Like Dashain and Tihar is our Christmas, where all the family comes together and we do all the celebrations.
And that hey, that's another thing, right? Like not and that's the thing of living, I guess, on like the Western side and making Western society and culture like the standard or the reference. Is that in some other parts of the world, the important holidays line up differently, right? So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So you just try to celebrate as best as you can, and it's kind of hard because, like I said, I don't know all the rituals, and I guess that's me being not the too much of a religious person, but it's never a bad idea to keep your traditions and cultures alive.
Oh, it's not. I definitely agree with that. And I think that's just yeah, I just like in terms of like facilitating to everyone being able to celebrate some of those. I think some accommodations need to be done, but once again, that's another topic as per usual. So Brishang, having celebrated this holiday this year, um, kind of like what is something that you always kind of like look forward? So now that days are over, what are you looking forward for next year for them?
I think just continuing with that Bhaitika. So and that if I continue to live in Ottawa, we'll continue to do that with my cousins here, and then I think I one of the things I really want to do is go to Nepal to celebrate it because, like I said, I haven't been back to Nepal to celebrate Dasai Tihar since I was 5 or 6 years old, right? So a long time, 20 almost 20 years, 21 years. So I definitely want to go back because one some of my fondest memories is watching the fireworks. Um, from the rooftops because Nepal housing is very different to Canada housing, US housing, where we have rooftops that you can go like chill on, right? It's flat rooftops, it's not slanted like here, so you can go to the top and literally watch fireworks from every house out there. Also, one of the biggest you know things that people do during Dulce is actually fly kites.
Mm-hmm.
So, everyone has big flights and they fly it from the rooftops and it's a lot of fun. So definitely want to go back to, you know, all that.
That'll be so great and lovely, especially like getting into where the like. There's nothing like celebrating something where it is like one of the main things, but uh, they all you also see a lot of like the originality of it.
Yep, absolutely. I wish I knew more of the religious aspect, the Hindu mythology aspect of it so I can explain it in better detail. And I'm sure there's so many people that are listening that are, just shaking their heads at me for not fully explaining it. But you know what? I would love to have people on to explain it more than I could.
And yeah, let's talk to some people about like what their experiences are in terms of celebrating some of these holidays and how they do it so like everyone who is listening can get a little bit of a sense of like what it is. What does it look like in different households or in different places?
Absolutely. Yep. Well, with that, I actually reached out to a couple of my friends that, wanted to explain to me what they usually do with their friends and family, or like, and some of the things about like Nepali festivals, it is sometimes very strict. So, it's very religious. So one of the biggest things that a lot of people don't like, especially the new generation, is that if you're a girl and you're on your period, you can't celebrate these because you're thought to be impure, right? So that's an old traditional way of thinking. However, a lot of younger generation, my generation, people don't really like that because it's like periods aren't as taboo as they used to be, or they shouldn't be anymore. So girls are trying to change that. And I really wanted to talk about that with a couple of friends, and this is what we talked about. So the first guest we have on today is one of my closest friends, Sneha Mishra. She currently lives out in Alberta. She's a financial analyst. She's also training to be a yoga teacher, and you can always follow her, hit her up on Beauty by Sneha, which is her Instagram. Again, we'll mention that at that towards the end. But so the topic today was Dashain and Tihar, and I wanted to get a little bit more perspective. I've said my part. Now we wanted to hear from other people, in the Nepali community about how they celebrate Dashain Tihars, what they like about it, what they don't like about it. So, Sneha, what's up?
Hey, Rashank. Thank you so much for having me.
No worries. You're a good friend of mine, and we can talk quite often. But we've never had a deep discussion about such a topic as Dasai TR, even though we're both, Nepali and we celebrate it. So
Exactly. And I think it's cool how we had so many similarities now we celebrated it because we both grew up in Saskatchewan for a portion of our lives, which wasn't the most diverse place. So we had to get creative in our celebrations, I feel.
yep, absolutely. So one of the first questions I'm gonna ask you is, what do you usually do for Dasai TR? Like how do you celebrate it? Like what do you do?
For sure. So, I guess things have changed a little bit since after I graduated and, moved out on my own, as they do, which we can talk about a little bit later, maybe when we talk about how the future is going to celebrate things. But growing up, we would do tika. My mom would tell us when it was Mahastami, when it was Naomi, and kind of give us like a brief description. And then she'd make prasad. And usually on the last day of Dasai, we would have a big party and, we'd invite over all the family friends and then it'd be fun. We'd play like different games and we'd kind of get like, for me and my brothers anyway, we'd get like a glimpse into how our parents celebrated, which is worlds different from what I experienced.
Absolutely, and that's what I said earlier in the episode, how back in Nepal you have so much family come over. It is the biggest festival in Nepal, and you have so much family.
Yeah.
Everyone comes over, you have a good time, but then you come to a place like Canada where it's pretty much your immediate family only. So quite the down step in size, right?
Oh, totally, totally. And like, it's nice because I guess in a way, like your family friends become your family and you get that closeness. But yeah, it's really different. And I feel for, our parents and even my cousins who got to grow up with that, like there's some sort of nostalgia and it's kind of like for us, Christmas and Halloween and stuff in North America are super big. If we went to a place where we just had to celebrate it kind of in a home, which is essentially what we had to do for Dasai, it would probably feel a little bit isolating.
Absolutely, and that's one of the biggest things I personally miss is just having so much like family around. And you nailed it when you said your family friends become your family. But
Yes.
again, it's really hard to replicate. Like I come from a big family back in Nepal, so having so many people come over for whether it's like tika or tr, when they do desu boilo.
Yeah, so I remember people would come to our house to do it. But like I guess for me and my brothers, we felt so removed from the tradition. Like we didn't really know what it was. It was similar to like the mummers tradition, which is something that happens out on the East Coast. So I had a little bit of relativity that way. But yeah, it was always interesting. But for us, it kind of felt like we were observing rather than participating, which kind of sucks because when I hear your stories and stories of my cousins and family, it sounds like it'd be so much fun to like participate in that type of environment.
Exactly. And another thing that you brought up that I hadn't really talked about in this episode was, Saskatchewan, we really didn't have like nowadays it's changed, but back in when we were growing up, there wasn't many Nepali families around. So we couldn't, celebrate fully with all the Nepali community as some places other places, like Vancouver, Toronto, or the States really do it. So for us it was like a double whammy almost.
Oh, absolutely. And I think for us, because we both did grow up in the United States, it was a totally different experience. Like I grew up in New England, and I remember Dasai Tihar were always these huge celebrations. You'd have people from multiple states coming in. You'd have those big parties, and then yeah, you move to Canada, and it's just so different. And it's interesting because very few people have that type of experience where they've kind of lived in Nepal, in the United States, and in Canada, and just kind of experienced these celebrations in such different ways and like varying forms.
Yep, exactly. And I mean, you have to adjust to what was given to you. So, and along with that, I guess for you, what are some of the like, talk to us about some of your favorite things that you've done in the past, and even nowadays. I know you like live in Alberta, which is far from where your parents and brothers live, but what do you do these days to try to celebrate?
Yeah, no, for sure. Okay, so one of my favorite things about Dashain and Tihar growing up and still is that we get to dress up because I don't normally get to wear like, desi clothing like that. And that was really fun. And that's actually like a really big bonding moment for me and my mom because on those days we would spend the whole day getting ready, getting pampered. I would do her makeup and it would just be a really fun time. And during that time, she'd also be teaching me a little bit about the culture and history. And that's just irreplaceable to me. I love those memories and it's something I'll cherish. And growing up here and like living on my own and kind of having to modernize our cultural celebrations while still keeping that like attachment to heritage, it's definitely been a challenge. But to be honest, I'm really grateful for social media and technology because every day of the say my mom would text me, like I said, Happy Naomi, right? And to tell me what it meant, or she'd be like, May Goddess Durga bless you. Today is the day that this happened, and it was just such a lovely way to start my day because I got to have that knowledge about what these celebrations mean to me, what they mean for my heritage, what they mean for my people, my countrymen, my religion. And then I also got to share that knowledge with other people. And I think that's really wonderful. I do have like other family members here. So I'll usually go to like, my Pauzu's house, my Didi's house, and we'll do tika. And a really nice thing is we can FaceTime family. So we'll FaceTime either like, grandparents or parents and stuff in Nepal, or parents and family in Canada. And it's really awesome because it kind of feels like we get to share this celebration in a bigger way. And that's been really positive.
Absolutely. Two things that you said that stuck out to me was number one, the FaceTiming blessings. Like I
Yeah.
love that because especially these days, like people actually put tikas on their phone to signify
Yeah.
the
It's so
blessings. Like
cute.
it, yeah, I love it. And the
Yeah.
second thing is the cultural aspects of it. Like that's one thing I really wanted to talk to you about because earlier in the episode I described it from like a guy's perspective, but girls in Nepal have been traditionally, on the lesser, like inferior to men, which sucks, but that's what it's been. And these days, with our generation, we're slowly changing that. And one of the biggest things that people are changing is like, the view on periods and how we celebrate Dasai Tihar when girls are on their periods. Like, like back in Nepal, if you're on your period, you literally can't celebrate because they think you're impure, which
Yeah,
which
you're
really shitty.
ostracized
Exactly.
for a
So like
natural body process. It's
absolutely.
ridiculous.
So, like going forward, you can maybe you'll touch up on this, but like how do you think we should like change that as a society, as like Nepalis, as people? Like what's a step what's a step forward in that direction?
I actually love that you brought that up because that's something I'm pretty passionate about. Uh, Obviously, since I grew up here, I guess I didn't have to deal with some of the restrictions that most maybe girls in Nepal have to deal with on their period, but I am familiar with them from visiting and from discussions. I just think going forward, we need to educate. Like, menstruation is a natural part of the human life cycle, and it is necessary for the creation of new life. We menstruate because we ovulate, and we ovulate because we literally can bring forward the next generation. So instead of it being something that's looked at as disgusting and kind of ostracized, I think it should be blessed. Or I'm not saying we need to be praying to women when they're on their periods or anything, but I definitely think that we need to understand that this is a natural process. Like, good for you for going through this and going through this pain so that you can bring forward the next generation of humans. And I think that if there's that sort of appreciation, for older people especially, and for younger people, and maybe more towards men, because maybe men don't understand it from the same perspective of experiencing it, right? Rather than seeing it. Obviously you do, but you know. You've taken the time to like understand and be sensitive towards it, which I appreciate.
No, absolutely. And like that's one thing that, really makes me happy is that our generation has been more aware of that. It's like, it's a natural process that why are we ostracizing, women for having a natural process, that's what they go through.
Yeah.
It's not impure, it's not anything negative, it's just what happens and, they should be able to celebrate just as much as anyone else.
Oh, absolutely. I just don't understand how it could ever be thought of as impure when children and newborns and birth are thought of as so pure, right?
Exactly. I'm sure it goes back to the religious aspect, which, like I explained earlier, I'm not too religious, so I don't know the full religious aspects of like, each celebration. So maybe someone out there who, who actually knows it can educate me and everyone else about it. But as
Mhm.
far as I see it, and as far as we see it, like especially us like living in the Western world, even Nepal
Yeah.
these days, I feel like a lot of Nepalese, are becoming more and more aware of like negative things like that. So it's really good to see.
Yeah, no, that's super positive. It's always good to see growth in the next generation, right? It's really showing that we took our parents' sacrifices and gifts and we're using it for the better.
Absolutely. So you kind of touched up on this earlier, but like the future of Dasai and TR, what does it look like for you, your family? Like, what's one thing that you really want to do for the upcoming Dasai and TRs?
Oh, that's so interesting. Okay, well, I'll backtrack a little bit to Tihar because I didn't talk about it as much, but my favorite, okay, two favorite. Kukur Puja is awesome because dogs are freaking awesome, but Bhaitika is like my favorite holiday because obviously, I've got two little brothers and I love them very, very much, as I know you love your brother very much. And I just love that day because in my household, it was always just about celebrating your siblings. And I remember, like in Nepal, you'll give like what sale roti sweets and stuff. But like one year I gave my brothers, it was like SmackDown versus Raw 2010, maybe. I don't remember. But yeah, we started doing stuff like that. I gave them COD another year, GTA. Like we kind of started modernizing the gift aspect of it. Um, and so I guess in the future or going forward, the next Dasai Tihar, like 2022, I would really like to see like a celebration with like the younger generation. Like it's so fun to celebrate with our families and stuff and get that like a heritage aspect. But I think it'd be really cool for us just to come together and have a party, dress up. We could talk about Dasai Tihar, maybe have like a discussion, but just really celebrate because at the end of the day, the beauty of these things is that it brings people together. It allows us to celebrate. It allows us to have a good time. And I think that we've got to make that happen.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you brought up Baitika because like literally got to celebrate that for the first time ever this year, this
Oh,
past
yeah.
like, last week. So it was super cool to be involved in that and it's just something different and something that I've never done before. So yeah, I can see why you enjoy it.
Yeah. Okay, did we ever do Bhaitika growing up? Because I feel like one year we did Dasai or Tihar in Regina.
I think we did Dase, but I've not like we've never done TR, I think. Or like we've never done
Really?
Vaitika, yeah.
Well, we've never done Tika, but I feel like our parents have put Tika
Oh
on
yeah,
us.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Like
for
your
sure.
parents have put Tika
Yeah.
on me, I'm
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure.
Yeah, I feel like it's weird for us to do it.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
but
Exactly.
Kate, there's another thing that I guess we can talk about, like for Tika, right? Like friends putting Tika on each other. Does it happen in Nepal? I don't know.
I don't think so, because as far as I can tell, I mean, there's probably different, because like I mentioned earlier, there's so many different variety ways of celebrating even Dasai and Tihar, right? And there's so many ethnic groups within
Hmm.
Nepal that celebrate slightly different ways.
Absolutely.
Like, so I think maybe there is in, but like for the most part, Dasai and TR and most Nepali festivals, it's usually the elders giving the younger people, the tika and the
Hmm.
blessings and the prasads,
And the
where
Datsina.
exactly, yeah, exactly. You
Gotta
can't
love the
celebrate
Datsina.
about that. So I don't like I've never seen that friend to friend, but maybe it happens somewhere there.
Yeah, maybe. Well, we could change that if we wanted to.
Honestly, I'm sure, there's so many festivals around like, Kids Day, Parents Day. Why not have a Friendships Day, right?
Honestly, we should be having a friendship day.
Exactly. So with Dasai Tihar, there's so many things that happens, but obviously one of the biggest things is food. You can't go to a Nepali party without talking about the food.
You cannot, yes.
So what is your favorite foods? What are your favorite like things to see in around the festival time?
Oh, okay. So actually things have changed a little bit since I've become vegan because there's like kasi obviously I can't eat, which is a big part of the festivals. But I like halwa a lot. I like sale. I like puri. I like achar. Like my mom makes such a good like aloo achar. It's delicious. And I really like chana, but I'm honestly not picky because all of our food is so delicious and I just stuff my face. I remember one year I invited some friends over for Dasai, and okay, you know how like Nepali parties, we got our snacks, which are basically a meal, and then like half an hour later it's dinner, which is like an even bigger meal.
Hmm.
So they didn't know that we had snacks and they were stuffed, right? And then my mom's like, okay, guys, come, it's time for dinner. And I just remember the shock on their faces when they saw the rest of the food that was out. And it kind of, made me realize that for us and for a lot of immigrant groups, food is such an important part of our customs and it really brings us together. And, like I think one of the biggest signs of warmth that we have in our culture is like at the end of a party, an auntie's in the kitchen and obviously she's got a lot of extra food and she's packing it up and giving it to people. Like I just love how that generosity and that giving, it just continues throughout the night.
Absolutely. Before I would hate taking like leftover foods because we already have like so much food at our homes.
Right.
But now living on your own, it's like I want that food to take home, right?
Right? Oh my God. Like that's the blessing. Like I just feel like people who make extras for the people who live on their own, like they deserve a special place in heaven. They're amazing.
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah. No. Yeah. So roti is always good, and I know you're vegan, but like
Yeah.
my favorite is definitely Kasuga Masu, like I talked earlier about,
Yeah.
and also like there's so many ways to make it, and I think
What's your
like
favorite?
I definitely just like with chura, which like for people that don't know what chura is, it's pretty much beaten rice, flat like rice. With that and kosikumasu or like goat meat is amazing. Like not the day it's made, but like leftovers, like when it's
Yep.
like oh, that's the best. But
My dad likes that too.
oh yeah, I love it. Or like even a lot of people, even me included, like the insides of a goat, like the intestines, stomach, liver, all that. I know it's a little on the some people might not like it, but like honestly, that the way my mom makes it with like super fried, it's like pretty good, I say.
How does she make it? I always like, okay, even before I've only been vegan for 2 years, but before I've always kind of been like, when it comes to meat.
Yeah.
So like I remember once we were somewhere and they had a goat and they were cooking it in the garage. And I think it was the stomach because I remember something like ballooning out of the pot. It was so funny. But how
Yeah,
do they cook the liver and intestines? Is
yeah.
it
So
like
with
yeah.
those, you have to like just clean it really well because they stink pretty bad.
Oh, I bet. There's
You have
shit
to,
in them.
yeah, you have to like clean them really well, and then you also have to like cook them like way like most people make it. It's called buton. They usually like fry it and put some spices in it and just serve it
Mhm.
with like rice or churro or anything really.
Oh, okay. Fair enough. Yeah, I don't think I've ever tasted it. I've obviously had kasi before, like when I was younger, but I stayed away from the internal organs.
So I know like vegan options. There's lots of vegan options for like
Oh yeah,
thanks
there is.
like Thanksgiving. There's tofurkey. So is there any substitute for like goat meat or?
Yeah, okay, honestly, so when I was at home during COVID, which was nice to be able to spend that much time with our family, and I know we both have talked about that. Yeah, so my mom was making a kasi kotol for my dad because he likes kasi. And I don't like I really like the whole part, you know what I mean? But I'm not gonna eat it if it's been cooked with kasi. So she made me a Beyond Meat kasi kotol. And it was pretty good, honestly. Like it was not as thick because like it didn't have the meat and all that, but it had the same taste and everything. And having a hot bowl of that with rice, it was actually really, really good.
As I'm watching the rain fall outside, that sounds really good right now.
Right?
'Cause- yes.
Yeah.
So I
Oh,
need
it's
to
really
learn how
good.
to make it.
I will teach you. It's actually not that bad. And the Beyond Meat tastes like it holds up pretty good and it tastes pretty good like in that Zol.
I love Beyond Meat. Like I've been a fan of it ever since like it got introduced, and I can see why you would make Zol with that stuff.
Yeah, it's really good. I think it's superior to like light life and stuff.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so, you talked about like Dasai TR.
Mhm.
What's like if you were to go to Nepal say next year for Dasai TR, what's one thing that you really really want to do?
Oh my God. Okay, well, to be honest, in the past few years, I've just become a lot more spiritual and really appreciative of my heritage and history. So I would want to go and see a celebration at a temple, and I would want to just sit in the contemplative silence and watch it. I remember when I was younger and I went to Pashpati, like there is just so much going on, and it was just amazing to sit back and like take it all in. And I think that would be super, super awesome. And of course, I would look forward to the tika and celebration with my family and, kind of getting to experience what you got to experience and what my parents got to experience. And like, with like a big group of people and having a forehead full of tika and rice. Looks like a vibe. You got to experience it at least once.
Of course, gotta get the photos for the gram.
You do, you do. And man, sometimes that tika, like, it gets big,
People are wondering, what the heck is that?
probably.
And and sometimes, honestly, I think people make it bigger just to make it bigger because
Yes, for the picture.
exactly, no, absolutely, because like no one wants a small one. You get the small ones on a daily basis, but the
But
bigger ones, you and like sometimes, like especially if you go to like the villages and stuff like that, they have their whole foreheads are covered.
yeah, honestly, like it's caked with rice and tikka. You can't even move because it's heavy.
Exactly.
Ugh.
So, it's always a good time. It's super colorful, like all red, and then you have the Zamara, which is all green.
Oh, it
And
is. Actually, I wanted to talk about that. One thing I really appreciate about Dasai Tihar and just the way we celebrate is how we bring nature into it. With jamara, with fruit, with nuts, with just that appreciation for nature. I just love that because I don't know, it just makes the experience feel so much more grounding and so much more. It inspires more connectivity.
absolutely, and that's along the lines of TR where we're celebrating, whether it's crows, dogs, cows, ox, or Bhaitika. It's just I think Hinduism and like the
Karmic
religion
faiths.
exactly
Yeah.
does a really good job of tying nature with ourselves and the soul and just it is it's a very deep connection between all the cosmic um
It is. No, you're right. And I love that because it makes you understand that while you are unique and you're special and you're here for your purpose, you're also part of this bigger collective and you're part of something bigger than yourself. And I think that our belief system and our celebrations really reinforce that feeling. And that's like a really uplifting and like spiritually powerful feeling.
absolutely. And so with that, Sneha, any last words for our listeners on Das ATR or any of the
Ah,
festivities around this time?
all I gotta say is, if you're gonna celebrate Dasai at Tihar with me next year, I'm so down for you to come. But you take selfies before the celebration starts because as soon as you've got Tika, your pictures are done.
That's a pretty good tip, but unless you want to post photos with red
Oh,
all
you
over you.
do before and after, before and
Exactly.
after.
Exactly. So not a bad choice. We definitely, we haven't celebrated together, so definitely need to celebrate it together. So you should come visit Ottawa. We'll celebrate. Whoever wants to come to Ottawa, let's celebrate together.
Let's make it happen for Shane. Thank you so much for having me on tonight.
No worries. Thanks for joining me. Of course, to the listeners, that was Sneha Mishra from all the way from Alberta on the other side of the country right now.
Woo!
Very, very close and good friend of mine. She, like I said earlier, she's a financial analyst, training to be a yoga teacher. So, if you want to learn that, hit her up. And her Instagram is Beauty by Sneha.
Thank you so much for sharing. I hope you have a blessed day.
Perfect. Thanks, Sneha.
Thanks for sharing.
And for our second guest today, we have Asta Pandey Kanan from Vancouver, British Columbia, who's a very good and close friend of mine. We've been friends for a couple years now. She's probably one of my closer friends out in Vancouver, but she's here to talk to me about Dasai and Tihar.
Hi, Prashank.
How are you?
I'm well. Thank you so much for having me. This is a very exciting topic to talk about.
Yeah, no worries. So let's get right into it because we've already had a guest from Calgary, Alberta. So now we're getting the other western side of the country. So Asta, my first question for you is, what do you typically do for Dasai Tihar? How do you celebrate it? Because I know your parents live on the other side of the world. So like, how do you celebrate it with them? How do you celebrate it with yourself? And just walk me through that.
Yeah, having never really lived in Nepal, and only having spent Dasai in Nepal once as an adult, um, I will say the way we celebrate is quite different than we do in Nepal because I feel like the amount of family members, the amount of like homes you go to and you visit and you get tika and dotsina from, is far greater than I would have in China growing up there and right now in Vancouver as well. Thusing isn't just a one day situation, it's a multiple day situation. So every single day there's like a little thing that my mom would do. Frankly, growing up, I never understood what we did, but it was just mainly different types of pujas, rituals, prayers. And then Tika was, I think, my favorite day because you would get all these dachina, like money from the elders, and they put like this tika on your head, and sometimes it would be like some grass in your ears, some flowers in your ears. So it was always very interesting to me initially until I started understanding what it actually meant. So for the 9 days, I think we would just do like Mahastami Puja, Ghatastapana is like the first day, which is a very, very important day. So that was a big day. Everyone would come to our place. My mom would do like this massive puja. We'd eat a lot of sel roti. We would do like a sel roti making party. We were very food focused in our household. And my mom and dad would do most of the puja, so the kids weren't super involved. And then it was, I think Tika is lasts around 3 days, like the last 3 days. And when you're living abroad, you don't have much family to go to. You just live with your mom and dad and your sibling. So your family friends become your family and they come over or you go over to them and then you put tika on there. So we almost like created a new family for us outside and we actually call ourselves family. Even in Vancouver, I live with my uncle and aunt who are actually not related to us by blood, but they were college friends of my parents in China and they moved here to Canada. So I go over to theirs in every single festival. So yeah, just a lot of eating, a lot of pujas, and a lot of bhajans, and a lot of dressing up and tika. So that,
Oh, that
yeah,
sounds exciting. Like, I feel like there's so many ways that people celebrate. Like, Dasai there's usually an overarching theme, but everyone has their own like special ceremonies or events that they usually do.
yeah.
Um, so, what's one thing that you really like to change about Dasai Tihar? Some of the traditions that really, back in the day, okay, sure, they flew, but nowadays not really, so
Definitely. We actually created a huge change this year, and it was a big deal for me because I had a huge rile up with my mother about why does the husband put tika on the wife, but the wife doesn't get to put tika on the husband? Does the wife's blessing not matter? And then the justification was, it's not about the relationship; it's more about the age. Dasaima, usually the elderly puts tika on anyone who's younger than them. So in my case, dad's older than me. That's why he puts tika on me. And then my counter question was, okay, so in the case that if the wife is older than the husband, what would you do? And then my mom couldn't say anything because she knew that in that situation, it's still the husband putting tika on the wife because in relation, husbands are for some reason greater than wives in our culture. So me and Hussein, we got talking. My husband and I, we got talking, and we thought, you know what is this BS? Why is that I get to bless you and I don't get any blessings from you, Asta? So the two of us decided, at the same time, we will put tika on each other and give each other dachina and give each other blessings. Put mitai, which is sweets, in each other's mouths instead of doing it one way. And we also did that with our friends. So I have a friend who's dating one of my bhais, someone younger than me. So I used to put tika on her because in relation I was Didi, but like older sister. But this year I told her, I was like, this is super patriarchal. You're actually older than I am. So, in fact, you should be putting tika on me because you're the didi. So, we thought, you know what? Why don't we just both put tika on each other? And we did that. And it felt really good because I was giving blessings and I was receiving blessings. And for Tihar, I would really like to change Bhaitika ko concept. Bhaitika used to be my favorite festival year round because I grew up with a lot of brothers, but I didn't have a single sister. And which meant I got a lot of attention from my brothers. But I also realized that it's kind of unfair because if you don't have a brother, you don't celebrate Bhaitika. And I saw that in my friends' families. So I think Bhaitika needs to be more of like a sibling festival rather than just, hey, let's fast for our brothers' long lives, do puja for them, and make sure they are safe. How about me? None of my brothers fasted for me, you know? I got money, yes, I got gifts, yes, I was happy as a child. But when you think about it, I had to do the hard work for their lives. Um, and they didn't do shit. So I definitely think that Bhaitika needs to be, I don't know, Dazubani Bhai Didi Istukhalkotika, rather than just Bhaitika, if that makes sense.
No, absolutely. That's a really good point because even one of the things that our guest earlier, Sneha, talked about was, and the whole thing with periods, how women in Nepal, if they're on their periods, they can't really celebrate all these festivals because they're thought to be impure. Which back in the day, okay, sure, that was tradition, that was religion, but nowadays, I feel like that's also something that's changing over time with our generation. I've seen that change, and even you've noted perfectly, even the equality of men and women in our traditions. I think that's a great thing to change. But I want to now switch to the more of the happier things of Dashain and Tihar. So, what are some of the fondest memories you have of Dashain and Tihar from your childhood or even recent times?
Um, Honestly, every year Dashain Tihar felt the same until this year for me because when you get married in our culture, there's this added layer and added expectation. People, like I've had so many people say, "Hey, your life has just started. Your life has just begun. How are you gonna move forward in your life?" And in my head, I'm just like, "No, my life began 27 years ago when I was born. My life began when I went to school. My life properly began when I started understanding who I was." So the individuality isn't really given much importance when you're married. So my first Dasai after marriage was supposed to be like this massive deal for people. And it wasn't. And I think that's very memorable because I don't want things to change after I'm married. I don't want these added layers of expectations after I'm married, especially because the added layers are expected from women, not from men. So I think Hussein and I talking and putting Tika on the both of us together at the same time was a really big symbolic thing that we did in our family to prove to people that, hey, even though we're married, we're equals and we've always been equals and we'll continue being equals. So that I think was very important for me. Yeah.
No, absolutely. Um, so we talked about this with our earlier guests as well, but what are some of your favorite foods that you eat during Dasai and Tihar?
Um, it's mostly Costco masu, mutton, goat, lamb, all types of red meats. My family eats beef, so we do eat beef as well, and we make it the way Costco masu is made, so the same spices. Um, and we do like lots of meats and matha because it's lucky for you apparently. um we eat tama, and it's a big excuse for us here in Canada to to cook all these Nepalese dishes. And finally, the most important thing, sel roti. This year we did a sel roti party. Like we actually made our own sel rotis on spot and ate it tatu like hot right off the pan, right like off the deep frying oil. um so it was a lot of fun. Like I got to make sel roti and I got to boss people around on how to make it because I knew how to do it. So that was really fun. Another thing I love to eat is kajuku barfi. It's in Nepal. There's this Indian sweet shop called Angan, They have my favorite kajuko barfi there. And this year I was able to find a kajuko barfi here in Vancouver that tasted exactly like that. So that really made me happy. But yeah, mostly like kasikomasu, selruti, and kajuko barfi.
Ooh, that sounds so good. And one thing you said earlier about like celebrating Bhaitika, which for the people that haven't already heard it, previously on this episode, is that I celebrated for the first time this year with my cousins here. I
Yay.
had never done that, so it was really cool, and it was something that I had never done. So doing it, did something that it was new and exciting to me,
Yeah.
and I'm sure there's so many other traditions that I've missed out on or other people have missed out on that because like I said earlier, that everyone or even every family, like my dad and my mom's family, they differ slightly in some um, formations or celebrations or pujas that they do. So I'm sure there's so many things to look out for. Is there anything unique that you guys do in your family that most people maybe haven't heard of or haven't really done?
Um, there are many wild things that we do. I always find our traditions like unimaginable traditions that Nepali people have come up with. But I think specifically to my family, um, oh my gosh, no, I can't think of something that's like super different. Ooh, I do. Okay, I just thought of something. Um, in Nepal, the 1 year as a young adult that I spent Dasai in Nepal, I remember my family, my entire family on my dad's side, we have a kuldevta. So kuldevta means um, the deity of your household. Every household has a deity apparently assigned to them at birth. I don't know, like it's like a family line thing, and our kuldevta, I guess, gets like extra love on Dashain and Tihar. But during Dashain, what we do is, and I don't like I don't necessarily agree with this because I don't believe in sacrifice, but our family buys two live ass goats, carries them up all the way up to Sanku. Sanku is a temple or like a goddess, and slits their throat on Sanku's wall. And that wall is covered in blood by other families who do the same thing. And I remember sneaking up there, even though I wasn't allowed, to see that happen. And I found that really wild. Like, literally, my uncle slit the throat of a goat to sacrifice him to God. And the blood squirts out onto the wall, like Sankuko wall, in a specific manner. Like, that's how you're supposed to do it when you're there. And what I found interesting was it's actually very similar to Islamic practices of sacrifice. When they sacrifice animals, that's how they cut it. Like, it's a halal way of killing, I guess, like painless and hygienic way of killing an animal. So I always draw that similarity. So yeah, I think a very strange, wild thing that my family does is sacrifice goats. And this is not my immediate family. This is my extended family. My dad can't even watch blood or like see blood. So he never really allowed us to go there. We would just hike back down when the sacrifice is happening. Um, but yeah, I don't know how that makes you feel, but it makes me feel very icky.
No, absolutely. And I talked about this earlier in the episode with, previously, but one of my first memories of going to Manakamna in Nepal was actually seeing a goat being sacrificed. However, again, for people that don't want to hear this, please skip the next 10, 20 seconds. But the knife was really dull, so it kind of like just hacked the goat's neck instead of, killing it swiftly.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so at that time I'm like, huh, this not good. But then, I mean, I still love meat, so I don't
Yeah.
know what that says about me, right? So
Me too. I love meat, and the crazy part is at that age, I thought I would be more traumatized. I wasn't. I was like, okay, this is normal, and I accepted it. And then now when I think back at it, I'm like, whoa, probably shouldn't have been looking at that age, you know? And we went home, we cut up that goat. In front of my eyes, I saw my uncle like cutting up that goat, washing it out, cooking it, and all of us had it, you know? So that thought is just wild that we killed our own goat and ate it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, if I really cared, I guess I would be a vegetarian, but I'm just ignorant about it.
Same, same. I feel like growing up eating so much meat in China, like everything has meat. You ask for vegetarian food, they'll put meat in it anyway. I've had it, like I think it's really hard for me to become vegetarian. Yeah.
Absolutely, no, though, and that's a really good point. So any last impressions, any last thoughts about Dasai Tihar, what you do, for our listeners out there?
Yeah, I think things just need to, start being less patriarchal, and holidays should evolve for the better, and we should introduce some equality between genders in our celebrations, because one of the things that I've realized is Dasai and Tihar are such a big deal in Nepal. You get a massive holiday for it. And it's become an excuse for excuse my generalization, but it's become an excuse for men to drink and hit their wives at home when being drunk, and give zero shits about their well-being. Women don't get a break during Dasai Tihar in Nepal. They never get a break in any festivals because they're expected to get up early, make the food, make the offerings, deal with all the shopping. Men just sleep in, get up, start drinking and celebrating. So I definitely think that even though our festivals preach a lot of good, and they preach a lot of good over evil or the celebrations of light, um, you don't really see that progressiveness within their actions. Domestic violence increases by a lot during those times because a lot of homemakers, specifically women, have to deal with their husbands being at home longer and drinking for longer hours and beating them. Marital rape increases during this time. Um, and a lot of gender roles, like stereotypical gender roles, get assigned from a young age. Um, and I think that needs to change. Just because it's a festival and you're preaching to God doesn't give you the excuse of assigning these stereotypical gender roles at such a young age on people. Um, so, yeah, I really think with time our traditions need to evolve to become a little more equal.
Absolutely, and I'm so glad you pointed out because it's up to our generation to change that, and it,
Mhm.
it, it has been a slow change, but I have hope for our generation because most of us have seen the other parts of the world and how people should be treated fairly and equally throughout, no matter what antique traditions and cultures you might have. You can still apply those to the current world, how the world goes. So I'm so glad you brought that up, and no, thank you for having this amazing discussion with me. um and once again, that was Asapande Kanan. I hope I'm saying that correctly.
Yes, you are.
From all the way from Vancouver, British Columbia. I'm so happy you were able to explain your thoughts and your traditions and just your overall thought process on Dasai TR. And once again, thank you so much, Asta.
No, thank you to Two Average Brown Bros for having me.
No worries, and we'd love to have you on the future for other topics of discussion. So let us know if you're ever interested.
100%. And let's hope that I'm not hungover next time.
I love it.
Yeah.
All right, thanks, Asta.
Well, that's great to know, and it was so nice to listen to everyone talk about it. We appreciate everyone who said, "Yes, put me in the episode. I want to talk about this." So thank you. And like we said, like we're here to learn, and I've been learning so much. So thank you again for coming, for joining us in the Two Average Brown Bros podcast.
Absolutely, yep. Without a doubt. Yeah, so overall, Dasai and TR definitely the more fun festivals in Nepal. There's so many others that obviously happen later on, in the year, but during this time, October, November, even like, US and Canada and Western cultures, there's a lot of things happening in during this time. So for us, October, November is pretty fun because we get the best of both worlds. We get to celebrate Dasai Tihar and then Thanksgiving and then Christmas and New Year's as well.
It does sound like a very good time for Shank.
I think it's one of the benefits of being an immigrant. You get to celebrate the festival or holidays for, your own country as well as wherever you are living.
Did you even get work done? Like during that's 3 months of just festivals and celebrations.
No comment.
That is fair. That is fair. But that's like, yeah, that's definitely one of the nice things of like uh, being an immigrant and just observing and to keeping the traditions alive from the place of origin. Um, you get to celebrate what what were you being part of, where you move, plus your traditions, and yeah, no, it is pretty great. Though, like you mentioned, sometimes it's really hard to accommodate for, because it's not the standard, right? So, but it is just so nice that you get more, do get more reasons to celebrate or take a couple of days off.
Absolutely. And if anyone wants to visit Nepal, I would suggest Dasai and Tihar time is pretty nice to go because most of people have time off during this time. There's it's so much colorful things happening in and around Nepal. It's just overall an amazing time to visit Nepal.
And that's lovely. And well, like if any possible, I'll add that to my bucket list, you know. Always wanted to visit Asia, so definitely putting Nepal at this specific time in order to get the full essence of like culturally the essence of Nepal.
Absolutely, yep. And you know what?
I'll let you know. So like I'll need I'm pretty sure I'll need like a local person or like someone that knows a little bit about Nepal. So maybe we'll have to plan something together.
Absolutely. If I go in the next couple of years, you're definitely welcome to come.
There you go. Perfect. So I guess that is where we're gonna wrap up our conversation about Daze and Tihar. And once again, if you want to share more about your opinion, like what you do to celebrate it, or things that like if you actually experience the festivals in Nepal or somewhere, if you just always reach out to us. And if you have any other questions, you can reach out and well, like Rishang will answer them because I can't. So you're welcome. This is like we said, we're always learning. So hope everyone learned something this week.
Absolutely. And you know what? I might not have the answers for some of the more in depth questions, but like Andreas just said, it's a learning experience. So if you ask me that, I'm definitely going to go and ask other people who will probably know and get back to you.
There we go. So, all right, let's wrap that up and move on to our very last segment of this episode.
Absolutely. Andreas, what are you looking forward to for this fine upcoming November week?
What am I looking for this fine November week? Well, like I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, Quebec is lifting again some restrictions across the province. So as of the like November 15 is when we're releasing the episode. Uh, that day, dance floors and karaoke's are back on business. So one of the big things about like Montreal is actually the nightlife. It's such a vibrant city. So of course, moving during the summer, it was like you could still go to bars, so you still got a sense of it, but you could never like get the real sense of like nightlife in Montreal because it's different from city to city and it's like very unique to Montreal the way their night scene is. So even though it's still November, and we're getting into the colder weather, uh, my friends and I were just very excited to like at least once experience what that nightlife is in Montreal. So we're so down. We've been talking about it for like the past week and a half, which is when the government made the announcement. So we're excited about that. Don't know when it's happening, but definitely looking like very much to one of those Montreal nights out because we've all been craving. We'll be craving it. The city's probably gonna go wild because everyone has been craving it for like over a year and a half. Uh, so we'll see. It's already hard enough to get a cab or an Uber when you're out, even though clubs were not open. So probably this time I'll have to mentally prep to either walk very long distances or just enjoy the dance floor. I actually don't even need to drink. I just want to dance again. And so that's something I'm really looking forward to. Not really looking forward for the amount of schoolwork I have to start get going in order to get ready for the end of the term. But that's what's up for this week. How about you, Brushang? What are you looking forward for the fine week coming up?
It's slightly cheating, but as most people know, we don't, record on Mondays. We record a little bit before. Um, so one thing I'm really looking forward to is Sunday, November 14th, so the day before this gets posted. The Cricket World T20 World Cup is happening. It'll be the final, so the results will already be out by Monday. So hopefully, it goes the way I want it to. But in the finals are New Zealand and Australia. There's already been 44 games with 12 countries, and it's down to the final two in the finals. Both New Zealand and Australia had amazing wins in their semifinals. New Zealand beat England and Australia beat Pakistan. So, I've seen finals involving New Zealand and Australia a couple times now. So it should be a good game. Really looking forward to it. I really want New Zealand to win. However, Australia are the slightly stronger side, I would have to say. But let's hope New Zealand wins, and I just hope it's a good game because like the last time I watched a New Zealand Australia final, I was so pumped for it, and Australia just wrecked New Zealand. So hopefully this time it's a little bit closer, if not a New Zealand win.
Hopefully it is, and because I know New Zealand is kind of like home also for you, so hopefully it happens.
Absolutely. So I think it'll be a good time. The results will be out by that when the episode's out, but I will definitely talk about that a little bit on the next episode as well.
Sounds good. So yeah, that's it for this week's episode of the
Oh,
two out.
before
What?
we sign off, Andreas, do you want to give an update to Movember? Because we are halfway done Movember already.
Yeah, so yeah, let's give an update on that. So yeah, so the beard is coming along for me. I still have to catch up on my running. I'll probably sit down and actually calculate how much running slash walk I have to do. But you know, finally finding the time. Honestly, the main thing was like timing for it. But now I think if I build it in, I'll be able to get it done. Um, but if you people donate, it'll motivate me a little bit more to do it. But in terms of the beard and the mustache, they're coming along. I think it's starting to get to the point that uh, I'll be able to trim the beard a little more to make the mustache stand out a little bit. So that's where we are at. How about you, man? Where are we in with that mustache?
Absolutely, it's growing. It looks pretty um, corny, but you know what? It's for a good cause, so I don't mind at all. Um, my plan was to initially do like a day by day photo, but then I thought it's probably just better to do day one than day 30 because I think my hair grows pretty slow at the beginning of like after I shave it. So last like the first week literally it was just like so slow. So I'm over it. So I think what I'm gonna do is maybe I'll post one at halfway mark, which will be this Monday, and then I'll do one on the 29th or 30th. As far as donations, yeah, keep those donations coming. It'll motivate us to do more and more. Even if you can donate $1, $2, $5, whatever it is, it'll help. It's for a good cause. And even our team, I think our team is doing really well so far. Um, on a personal note, I think today is day 13th, and I've already walked 107 kilometers, and my goal was 200 for the month of November. Um, it's kind of easy because I play Pokemon Go so heavily these days that I go for walks like all the time now. so it's super easy to rack up those walking kilometers. But yeah, so like let's keep the momentum going. Let's keep the donations going. We started strong. Let's end strong.
Exactly. So, yeah, and like Rishang said, as much as you want, we truly appreciate it, and as much as you can give. So yeah, so that's it where we are with Movember. So let's help us push through the last half of it. But yeah, it's gonna be quite a couple of days with the running and walking, but excited to looking. Haven't been to the old port in a long time, so maybe I'll do that. But yeah, I think that brings us to the end of this week's episode. Um, we'll catch you up next week with another episode, and we might have some people also coming back again. So stay tuned for that. But Shing, where can they reach us out if they want to talk to us?
Absolutely. So, like always, if you have any comments, concerns, questions, or crybaby stuff, you can reach out to us at the 2 Average Brown Bros Podcast on Instagram or Twitter, or our individual DMs. Like always, our DMs are always open, whether you want to talk about Dashain and Tihar, Movember, or really anything. Hit us up, let us know. And you know what? So, we had a couple of great guests today. We're going to have an amazing panel next week. If you want to be on future episodes, let us know.
And we're always welcome to have you over. And yeah, other than that, have a fantastic, amazing week. It's chill, busy. Just give it time to treat yourself and to have some time for you. But we wish you well, and we'll catch you up next Monday with a brand new episode of the 2 Average Friends podcast. Bye.
See ya.